almost like, destroy the light. The panelists are going to come out. It's a cross-section of folks. We're going to have, we're going to allow them to introduce themselves. We're having a little bit of a mic cancellation problem, so I'll explain that to them when they get here. We have multiple mics. We collected a bunch of questions in advance from all over the country. We obviously can't ask them all. One of the things we were discussing back there is everyone's got a lot of deep questions where the accreditation board isn't prepared. Say hi, Mark. don't tackle him. But so that's one of the things they were saying. They were looking at some of the questions like, ooh, that's what Ty was saying. Don't answer that one. We don't. So that's all good. So don't expect yes answers or deep answers. It's a fair thing. This thing is just getting off the ground. There's some questions that we're going to ask that aren't on the screens. Khurram and I are going to handle it, back and forth with the panelists. So Ms. Arrington's going to answer a lot of questions. We have a member of the accreditation board, the chair, Ty. We had a large business, Northrop Grumman, for you small businesses who are getting those compliance letters from the large businesses on the existing standards, your CUI, your 800, 171. So there's a lot of that. So folks from Northrop Grumman are here. We have an attorney. We have a couple of attorneys here, actually. So we're going to talk about a lot of the questions that I get from small businesses and businesses in general. It's like, how do I answer this question? And I just checked it. And am I going to get in trouble? We're not lawyers here, so we never give any advice on that. We say, hey, you should talk to your attorney on that. I've got a little bit of a contracting background. The one thing I'll tell you is do not falsify the answer in case somebody does come around. So little things like that we're getting. And the questions are going to come here. And again, we're not going to go with all of the questions. For our panelists, we're having a bit of a mic gain issue. So what we're going to do is we have two mics. So Khurram, what we're going to be doing is when we ask the question, we're going to turn the mic off so that the mic that the panelists are using then becomes the operative mic. Where's my second mic, guys? Thank you very much. Can you bring that forward? And as soon as we'll probably, you want to tee it up with the first question off the panel, or no, we're going to allow folks to introduce themselves first, and then we're going to tee up the questions. All right? So I'm going to cut this mic off, and there we go. Yes, ma'am. And we can start making the introductions.
Ty Schreiber, I'm the chairman of the accreditation body. My day job is at University of Virginia, but in this capacity, it's corporation agnostic. Quickly about the AB, because we're limited in time. If any of you were at the 19 November meeting, RFI, the industry day response for the AB, where Ms. Arrington and team spoke, dropped the mic, said, industry self-organized, go figure this out. I was one who stayed, and with several others in here, developed working groups, worked through the holidays, figured it out, and self-organized in January. As an entity, we became a real company, a Maryland nonprofit 501c3 as of 21 January. So right now we've got three components to our mission. One, build a company. Two, establish a relationship with our DoD partner and affiliates. And three, figure out how to implement this. I've looked at some of these questions. There's a lot more unknowns than knowns. I want to make everyone aware that a month from now, the AB is going to have a international conversation with any and all comers that will be hosted here and telestreamed, where we will field a broad range of questions from the audience, from all stakeholders, that I think will be very illuminating. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
All right, good morning, everybody. Morgan Plummer, Managing Director of the National Security Innovation Network. So we are a program office inside the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. Our primary mission is to engage non-traditionals, so really thinking about the national security innovation base. So early stage ventures and academia, how to pull them into the department's problem-solving processes. And one of the things we're thinking about right now is how the rollout and the implementation of CMMC will really apply to those folks who don't yet know, actually, that they're going to be part of the defense industrial base, who don't yet know or haven't really conceived of the idea that they'll be pivoting in to help work with the department and help solve our problems.
You all know who I am.
Good morning, everybody. Ed Divini, recently retired Navy captain at U.S. Cyber Command. I've been out in industry 6 months now, and I'm the corporate head of cyber programs for Northrop Grumman. So I'm I'm the interface between the board and the presidents of the 4 business units on all things cyber. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Mike Pitcher. I'm a VP with Coalfire. We are an assessment organization across a number of different frameworks. I think most relevant maybe to this group is we're the leading FedRAMP 3 PAO. So that is taking a government regulation, implementing it in commercial entities do business back with the government. So I think there's some parallels there. We are an aspiring C3 PAO. We are not one yet. Of course, nobody is. But what I can offer, I'm excited and honored to offer a practitioner's perspective on doing thousands of other assessments. So, getting prepared now, I think, to what Katie said earlier, is important. I think getting prepared now and starting to do these things now will get you to operate at that level of maturity required when you actually go through your assessment. So I can provide some perspective on that.
Good morning, everybody.
Sorry.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Kelleher. I'm the director of the Maryland MEP, which is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We're a nonprofit here in Maryland that works with manufacturers in the defense contracting community on a number of issues, but over the last several years, it's been pretty aggressive working towards compliance with the NIST 800-171, providing resources, financial assistance, technical assistance, and we're also part of a larger MEP national network, federal collection of 51 MEP centers, about 1,500 practitioners that work with 50,000 contractors and manufacturers each year. And nationally, there's been a strong move to help these small and mid-sized contractors comply with the 800-171. And as we look forward, how do we transition that from the 800-171 into the CMMC? So we're a collection of resources that are working with partners and building partnerships to address these issues as we move forward.
All right, guys, good morning. Last and possibly least on this panel. My name is Paul Revere. Actually, that's the role that I'm playing at our law firm. My name is actually John Williams, and at our law firm, we represent primarily small and mid-sized contractors, and whenever I speak to a group and ask who's aware of CMMC, hardly any hands go up. So one of the big roles that we're playing is trying to get this mic to work, so success right there. But just to raise awareness so that the small businesses are not left in the cold when CMMC comes online over the next few years. And really, my main point for small businesses is that I get it as a regulatory lawyer that compliance is a 4-letter word. As Katie said earlier, I love that. I don't know what words you're thinking of, but I'm thinking of cost. But what we really want you to think about when it comes to cybersecurity compliance is to view it as an investment to make a competitive advantage, to either gain one or not lose a competitive advantage. So we really want you to shift your mindset on compliance away from being a cost to being an opportunity to get a competitive advantage.
All right, so you're probably not going to be able to read my lips, so make sure the mic's working. Let's pull up the first question. They won't all be on the screen, but so question is, what are the new timelines for training of C3PAO pilot labs? And I'm going to start with Katie on that.
Am I mic?
I'm going to give you this.
All right, so we turned over the model. There we are, collaborative, working on the training modules now. Our goal is to have in late April our pilot Pathfinder on the training for the C3 PAOs. With that being said, we don't want to eliminate small business and individuals from becoming auditors. We want you. So I believe the portal has the AB portal. Do you guys have a way to register to get information? We do. And I would strongly suggest, as we are working through that right training, right, we're doing it right now, to have it, how do you train an assessor to look at 2-factor authentication, right? How do you get to that? So as we get this done, the first iteration, the first training program, April through May, right? We're gonna start that. And as the graduates of those courses come out, will be about the same time those RFIs start hitting the ground. So that's what we're looking at from the government perspective. Do you wanna add?
So if you haven't been there, cmmcab.org is the authoritative source of what's happening from an accreditation body perspective. We have a board form. The boards have committees, although there hasn't been a whole lot of updates on the website right now. There's a lot been going on. 3 committees particularly are of interest. We've got a standards committee, training and assessment operations, and then the certification and accreditation. All parts of the ecosystem of how this gets implemented. So they've been hard at work, the board members, because right now we're an all-volunteer force of 14 individuals that come from large companies, small companies, and all things in between. We've got, when you look at their biographies, you'll see they got the skill sets to at least establish the critical aim points and implementation mechanisms from a materials, process, procedures, et cetera, taking the model that Katie and her team have done and turning that into reality in accordance with the schedule and goals that DoD's established. We are a listening organization. We're also we're not doing this alone, and we're not reinventing the wheel. So you should expect in the next week to see working groups that are specifically formed to address challenges across those 3 committees to help figure out how we're going to stitch all this together. So stand by for more.
And just to let you know, we didn't, the DoD turned the model over, right? We didn't turn our back on. So APL, Carnegie Mellon, SEI, the same groups of individuals that created the CMMC are the same groups creating the training and curriculum, right? So we didn't turn our back. Like I said, this is a partnership. We're doing this with industry, with academia as we go through this. Be patient. As we go through those first iterations, right, we're gonna have to do some tweaking on this. Nothing, is perfect. So be patient with us. And the other part to that, the C3PAOs, FedRAMP is a great model. We don't, we're also working through how we do reciprocal, ingesting that in. So if you've paid to have an ISO 27001 audit, we need to have the assessors trained, right, to take that information so we don't duplicate, and ultimately it's the taxpayer that pays. We don't want to duplicate good effort. We need to get a level set of what we can ingest. But go to the website. I can't tell you enough how much they're doing, but we've been quiet. Someone said we haven't been really active. Oh no, we've been far more active. We just haven't been publicly, doing a tremendous amount of outreach, which I appreciate you guys are moving forward on.
And so there are trainings out there right now that are mentioning CMMC. So just to be clear, there's no CMMC approved trainings out there in the world today.
That is correct.
But the model is out there. And like I said, you should be getting prepared. Now, if anything, it's good for your business. The model is out there. It's been broken down. I applaud what industry did. Don, stand up. Stand up, guys. Stand up. These are the people that actually did the hard work and created the model, some of the team. So give them a round of applause. I didn't do much other than tell them, nope, it's not, you didn't dumb it down enough for me yet. I didn't understand it. But this next question, I'm going to go where we're here.
Sure.
Will current lab CP3As with NIST have a priority? No. Do you want me to lie? No.
Agreed.
Next question.
All right. Let me go on the. Okay, let me ask the question. Hello? There we are. So sometimes people reference being, I'm going to just talk in my loud lawyer voice until this works again. Sometimes people reference being CMMC compliant, means being NIST compliant. NIST is mostly a technical volume and does not reference any policies that are needed, but others reference that, and there needs to be document, policy, plan, procedures as well. Which one is true? Who wants to, anybody over here want to talk about that?
Come on, lawyer, jump on that.
Depends. Circumstances.
Do you want me to give you hand the mic down, right? I know. Someone tell me today, if you're NIST 171 and you're not compliant, what happens? Nothing. No, False Claims Act, you're absolutely right, and I think that. The second thing is that we did have, so the question is basically, reference CMMC compliant means NIST compliant. Well, the CMMC was based on the NIST, but the NIST is not a policy. It's a standard difference. The thing that we can do right now is Ms. Lord, the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, my boss, ultimately, drafted something in February of 2019. Actually, we signed out January 13th, 2019. It is a memo called the Block Change Memo. In the Block Change Memo, we made cybersecurity part of the contract business systems. Does anybody know about that? And then that's when DCMA, Defense Contracting Management Agency, started doing what they call the DIB-CAC, Defense Innovation Industrial Base Cyber Acquisition, what is it? Assessment. So they started going out and they were going out and auditing our large primes on their NIST 171 compliance and giving them a grade point average. What could happen if they were found severely deficient is they could issue a car to them, that we have 4 cars that we can issue, but those aren't highly used. So the CMMC will become a go, no-go decision at the time of award. So at the time of award, a company has the CMMC certification required by the statement of work to go, no-go. And that's how we'll get an enforcement, and it's good for 3 years, right? We've got to come back around to the thing, so that's how we'll make it part of the policy plan and procedures.
They're also asking about the maturity part of CMMC. That's part of what the question's asking, because the maturity requirements are policy plan.
Yes, okay, sorry, okay. Did you hear that?
No.
I'm Pete Dinsmore, and I helped create the model. I think the question is asking about, the model has technical practices like NIST, as the question says, and it has maturity processes, which NIST does not have. And as a matter of fact, at level 2, it talks about having a policy for the practices you're doing, and at level 3, it talks about plans and procedures. So yes, CMMC does require policy plans and procedures at the appropriate levels beyond what NIST requires.
And part of the tools that are out there that if you demo today is small businesses generally don't have policy, right? Who's got policy? The tools have draft policies in them to help small business get there, right? We don't want you to be caught flat-footed. So the model was set, like I told you before, critical thinking about your cybersecurity posture. It should not, nor will it ever be, if there is a breath in my body, a checklist. Because a checklist is something you do, you get ready for, you check it, and then you forget about it. This has to be continual. Companies need to, this has to become part of your day-to-day. Like I said, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you make your bed. You need to think about cybersecurity at your business practices the exact same way. Doug.
Let me ask our retired Army fellow here about Ed Northrop Grumman. You're a big prime. Navy. Sorry.
Might hit you.
I will not live to see the end of the day now. So to my family, my will is in the safe. So as Northrop Grumman, you have a lot of subcontractors. So what are you doing regarding making sure that they're compliant now, cybersecurity-wise, and how will you make sure, as this program rolls out, CMMC, that they are living up to their requirements?
It's a very good question. Thank you for the opportunity. Also, thank you to Katie and Ms. Lord for having a transparent and open process since the very beginning. And our team has been very happy to be partners with you along the way. So thank you for, for truly being transparent with the entire industry and making this happen. And Northrop Grumman, one, we believe this is incredibly important for the nation, and not only for our company, but as Katie made the point this morning, for everyone. We think this is an incremental approach for ourselves and our 15+ thousand subcontractors and partners with us. The way that we're going to approach this is incrementally. So we've already set up a corporate CMMC program office, and then each of our business sectors each have a program office to implement this. And so we're going to be looking down very proactively, trying to talk to each one of them and help them along the way, and try and do this at scale. And certainly the work and the templates that the accreditation board and training is going to help us all try and implement this, because we can't do it individually. So whatever we're doing, we're trying to do it at scale. And certainly we're going to help from the largest to the smallest of all of our partners to comply.
Are you already seeing questions from your subs about CMMC? Are they already engaging on this issue?
So we're already seeing a lot of activity from our subs. We have pointed them, exactly like Katie said, to the model, because it's actually, the requirements are already out there. There's no surprise to any of this. So we're helping them understand if they're having questions, mainly from the smaller ones, on really how far do they need to go. And we're encouraging them, go as far as you can, because it's only to your own benefit. So it's really a team effort. We're viewing all the subs as partners with us, and we're going to get them all there together.
So there's also going to be companies out there, either in the room or watching us, that are not currently part of the defense supply chain, but might need to be very soon. And Morgan, you're dealing with a lot of those businesses. What are your thoughts on how do we get them to find out about this and to be compliant?
Yeah, I think the key is to think about this as just basic business hygiene, right? Which is to say, there are, in fact, this is a reality, there are barriers to entry to doing business with the Department of Defense. That's a good thing, by the way, that's a feature, not a bug. But I think what we can be thinking about is, at the same time, and Ensign has a number of acceleration, in our terminology, acceleration programs that are really designed to accelerate those new concepts and solutions, those new technologies, put them into the hands of the warfighter, and start to transition them slowly over time into programs of record. And when we're talking to those young businesses, to those really early stage, 10, 20 personnel companies, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 6 months ago, they didn't necessarily know that they wanted to pivot and become a dual-use company. But at the same time that we're talking to them about cage codes and DUNS numbers, right, and what it means to become a subcontract performer, and going over the basics, integrating in CMMC as like, hey, this is the other thing that you have to do. And I think it's well said already on the panel that young companies, particularly companies that want to pivot into the dual-use market space, should be thinking about this as an investment, as a long-term investment in their company, to help get a part of really what is the part of the defense industrial base.
So right now, FedRAMP's out there. What do you see as the parallels between that and what's coming down the pipeline, and what are your thoughts on how this can be rolled out in a way that works for a small business?
So I think there's a lot of parallels and there's a lot of differences. I'm gonna swap mics.
That was better.
I think first and foremost, nope. There we go.
Very good. Very good.
Stick with that one.
All right. I think first and foremost, FedRAMP is product focused, right? So FedRAMP is, you have a product that you're trying to sell. CMMC is organizationally focused, enterprise focused, right? So it's really the maturity of your organization. So I think it's a little bit. Sorry. All right. But that, I think that's a big difference. So I think there are parallels. I highlighted one earlier where I think it's basically enabling a market by complying with a federal regulation. But I think what's different as well is it was CSPs. It's highly technical, and it was tens, hundreds. I mean, this is hundreds of thousands, right? So I think the scale is much bigger. I think there are some overlaps with FedRAMP. I think organizations that are FedRAMP now, they are already meeting some controls. And Katie mentioned reciprocity, and of course, we always try to talk customers into doing one test and using it across multiple frameworks, right? But I think there's a lot of controls that don't apply necessarily because they were product focused. So security awareness training, those types of things that are more organizationally focused and are going to impact some of the smaller businesses as well, that really the maturity needs to be there as an organization, not just we got to get this one product through this process so we can sell it type of a thing. So it's a different mindset. It's more we as an organization have to change, not we have to develop this product in such a way we can sell it to the government, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what do you see in terms of, are there any pathways or tools or things that are being used right now in FedRAMP that you might think could be cross-applicable?
So I think what FedRAMP has done a really good job at is posting guidance. So the SSP templates, for example, so system security plans required at level 2, they have some guidance on sampling, on vulnerability scanning, penetration testing. So I think the FedRAMP Program Office, GSA, has done a great job putting out guidance to those that want to go through the process. So maybe they don't need to engage with the C3PAO right away, but there's some self-help that they can go download. So I would recommend going there. Obviously, there are some parallels, but I think when you think through, and vulnerability scanning, pen testing is going to be at the higher levels, but for the small businesses, the system security plan, some of the things they'll need, those resources are available. So I think even though you're not going for FedRAMP, you can leverage some of the resources that are there now. As I know Ty is going to be posting all that stuff as well at some point, but for now, there are definitely other resources you can use.
Let me go to the next preset question. Armando, you want to take it?
You're going to turn that one off. There we go. Here's the next question. Can you share more details on allowance for costs? I think I know who wants to answer that one.
So I talked about working with OMB and OIRA and doing our cost analysis. So we're actually going through, and that's part of our process, is I have to tell the government, tell you, the taxpayer, how much it's going to cost us to do this so that we can get cost realism, A, for our contracting, our course, so that when they look and they do an analysis of the rates, because we do cost realism, having it in there so that we understand what we're asking you to do and what we should be paying for it to do. There's been a lot of work done on that. So I mentioned the DIB CAC assessments. We took, Dawn's nodding her head because you don't know it. There's two guys, they're named Buddy Dees and Dr. John Choi. Dr. John Choi and Buddy Dees are the two DOD brain on the CMMC, and they have been in huddled for 2 weeks with OMB, OIRA, the CMO office, working through the costing. So we took the DIB CAC assessments and we took how much time it took to do them, how much preparation government contractors took to get ready for them, and did the analysis. And they actually did a pretty good job at giving, and I'll say that one of the estimates, and I don't quote me on this, but I can tell you they looked and they said, well, even to get ready for an assessment, it's like $25,000 in level 3, 4, and 5. So we understand this is not, this is why we're going through the rule change and why we're going to OMB, OIRA, because it is going to cost. The cost that you're I'll say that for those people who know what the 17 controls of the CMMC level 1, those are virtually no cost to do. It's the cost of the assessment that I need to roll into and say, okay, you're going to build that into your rate. It's going to be part of your G&A, and make sure that we have that wrapped into the rate. As you move to level 3, that's a very costly thing to be doing, and making sure we have the right costing built in. So when we say, to implement a CMMC 3, the company is going to have to spend X amount of dollars. Now, we're not through with all that analysis. I don't want to jump ahead of the game on that, but I will tell you that we are very much looking at how to do cost realism, bid rates, working with our PM shops, our PEOs, our acquisition community, and saying, what's it going to look like in the end?
Yeah, I'm going to give John a question. Pete, also talk a little bit about what you're on the NIST aspect of this for a while with the small business manufacturers around the country, but also in Maryland. I don't know, something's going on. But manufacturers and also in Maryland, and I want to get some of the pain that you're seeing and some of the things that you're doing. John, from a legal perspective, want to get your ideas on what you're hearing out there in the world and there we go.
It's musical mics.
Yeah, what you're hearing out there in the world, and what are your thoughts from a legal perspective? When I was a small business guy, I kind of guess I am still, but paid a lot of lawyers for a lot of compliance things, and you want to get out in front of that. So I'll let you start with what you're seeing from your firm that you specialize in small and medium-sized business legal advice and support. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks. A couple of thoughts on that. I mean, I think it's really important for the small businesses to be looking at your agreements with other parties, whether that's prime contractors when you're a sub or the subcontractors below you, to make sure that you have appropriate risk shifting provisions in those agreements that are going to address potential liability around cybersecurity incidents and compliance. And I think the comments from Northrop are really helpful. They are taking a very proactive approach in terms of how they're working with their subs. I don't know how universal that will be with all primes, and I think we do have some concerns on behalf of the small businesses that while CMMC level 1 might be all that is needed according to the requirements in DoD for most small businesses, that primes will impose a higher standard on their small business vendors, so that effectively you're going to need a higher level, I think really level 3, to play. So, what does that look like for you and with your particular programs and your particular primes? Doing that assessment now, I think, is really important, even if we might be a few years away for your programs for this requirement to be a reality. I think that's something that we're really trying to get people thinking about, and I think the other side of that is that some of your small business competitors who are early adopters and maybe given their programs, et cetera, have identified level 3 as the necessary level. They will market their customers to put out requirements under level 3 because that gives them a competitive advantage. So can you play with your competitors at only a level 1, which may be all you really need according to the requirements, but from a practical competitive standpoint, will that be enough? And then will there be protests of solicitation terms around, well, they put level 3 in here, but really it should only be level 1. I think we will probably see some of that activity too. So just some food for thought.
I have to step in. Having run a small business for 18 years prior to this particular life and lived through the CMMI, you are so on point. And I know Ms. Arrington is going to help somehow, and that the gaming of the system such that to manage the acquisitions with the contracting officers, we, once a month, if not once a quarter, we get DAU and the Eisenhower Institute, those are the acquisition people here, and we talk about the CMMC. We don't speak about it, we say it's coming. They have more questions than we can answer, they're waiting for training. But I always say, please do small businesses a favor, be judicious, understand the standards, don't pick wildly. And then also, if the source selection or whatever is trying to influence you, listen to what you're being told before you pick a level that automatically eliminates a certain segment of the business community. Again, lived and died with CMMI on that as the different agencies implemented it differently. You could just see it going on. Sometimes it would come out as like a CMMI level 1 next to you, it's like, boom, magically it's a 3 or 4 or 5. I'm like, oh, guess I'm out. You know what I mean? And then you did the research. Oh, Katie wants to come in on this one. Come on, yes, ma'am.
Oh, so let me tell you. So it's really interesting to have somebody in working a model that actually went through the burn of CMMI. Because I did, right? It wasn't painful. It was very painful. Centuria, he's falling asleep sitting there, but at Centuria we did that. Centuria, do you remember going through CMMI? Do you remember that? It was fun, wasn't it? I was too. So there are 2 things that I put in place, which CMMI did not have. The Adaptive Acquisition Framework, when you look at that 5000 series, it clearly states that if you are transmitting CUI to your sub, they have to be level 3. If you are not, they are level 1. How I've put the guardrails on is because the cost, right? So if a PM or a core want to up, they're gonna have to come out of pocket for it, right? So it's not necessarily, hey, I'm gonna change the requirement. You're gonna pay for it, which is going to really restrain, the primes, because they're the rate, you're gonna have to be competitive, right? So how are you gonna wine and dine that one when you've got to, be able to meet that competitive range that the other primes, other large businesses are saying, okay, this is how we're getting. So we've learned from faults in the past. I would say the protest is going to be, we understand protests happen, right? There's some legislation you all should be paying attention to about the protests. You know what I'm talking about? You want to talk about that? Yeah. God, you are a lawyer. Wow. But understand that if the government, we kind of forget that our job is to protect the weapon system, the infrastructure, what we're doing. When we come out and we say this is the level of protection, we're the customer. So protest the level, but we put really hard restraints in, that 5,000 CS, the fact that the cost is going to be there. We're hoping to buy down the risk of protest based on that, but understand that the cost of this at the end game is going to drive, what are you willing to pay for? And in security, we understand, we have a really good understanding of what we need to pay for versus what the juice is worth the squeeze. So, trying.
Perfect. I'm going to give the MEP director some love. We got about 10 minutes. Can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Because I can. It's in the air. That's lunch. So, but the original question was, what have you seen in your past couple of months working with the small businesses and the CUI and the 171?
So the biggest thing that we're seeing is really confusion and lack of clarity. It's across the board, and forums like this do a great job, I think, of clarifying that. And it ultimately boils down to cost, and I think Katie said it a few times today. We're buying down the risk, right? Yes, it's a cost of doing business. There's a lot of resources looking at how can we bake those costs into the rates or make them allowable. There's also resources around the country that are looking at how do we help with the small and mid-sized business comply with these things. In the state of Maryland, they have the Buy Maryland Cyber Tax Credit, which is a first of its kind and only of its kind in the US, where if you're a small business buying from a small business provider, you get a tax credit for that. As an MEP here in Maryland, as well as nationally, we've been working with the DoD through the OEA to provide financial assistance to companies to really start to move the needle. Right now, it's around 800-171, which is the other question we always get. Well, what do we do? We're going to wait for this CMMC. You're not going to be in a bad position if you're moving to 800-171 compliance. In fact, it's going to set you up nicely to be ready for CMMC, and that's the push we put out to our customers and our clients. Move towards that. Your contract, the DFAR right now says thou must be compliant with 800-171. I know they're working on the DFAR language, but it's not going to put anyone in a bad situation if they work towards that. So the resources are out there. It is a costly thing, and I love the fact that the AB and the others are looking at how do we keep it cost effective depending on what level you need to achieve, right? Depending on where you are in that supply chain, and that the big primes are looking at how they can roll that out for all of their suppliers. And I think we just need to continue to be cognizant of that, right? More education, more resources to help companies, move the needle as they prepare for this. And then really creating that support structure of technical assistance and products and tools and platforms. And it's going to be done through partnership. I know MEP, we're talking to Armando and his team and some of the other resources around the country of how we can do more to bring more to that small business community.
Yeah, the MEP organization has been a great organization to get input from. They were on the ground first, so we've learned a lot from that. We've been, some of the first companies we went to were MEP companies that participated in the compliance program there to learn from their experiences and understand how we could help. And we're having some great national conversations, spoken with the OEA director on what his national initiatives are and where he sees gaps that collectively we can help potentially close, and then we're having that conversation. Just want to remind you guys that talking about conversation, as Ty mentioned, as Mark Berman, who's here, another one of the board members, raise your hands. Like one more time. We got a number of board members here. We're gonna set up that national conversation con call. There's going to be a Cisco telepresence. We're going to use one of the facilities in DC. I just wanted to mention that. It's going to be in DC, either in Herndon or DC. I'm trying to encourage DC. Hopefully we can get Ms. Arrington's schedule to do that. Why is that happening? Well, the White House, with the virus thing, is doing, and Cisco has jumped in to offer free teleconferences and telepresence services to all kinds of industry, particularly the medical industry, that needs to communicate with each other without traveling, and to communicate with foreign health entities that need help and to get advice. So I think it was a really smart thing. It was actually something Mark mentioned to me. We were chatting, and then as Kerm knows, you give me one sentence, it's going to turn into something. And I started making phone calls, and and Cisco's like, we're already doing it for the White House. Come on down. We just need to pick a date, so hold on for that. That's going to be a more massive discussion. This is a more limited one. Let's get the next question on the slide, if we can. Is there an approved products list, APL, government contractors must comply with for hardware and software? If so, where is the list located, and who maintains ownership of the list? Who wants to take that one?
That's why it's called the APL.
Is it okay?
So I believe NSA holds the, I'm sorry, I could be wrong, but NSA holds, all right. And don't quote me on this one. The APL for the government is held, NSA does the approved product. No? Who does the approved product? DISA, sorry DISA, oh my gosh. Admiral Norton, don't hit me. I'm sorry. But yeah, there is an approved product list. You also go through, who here is a product company? Raise your hand. Okay, what do you have to work? An AT what? Oh, so those, there's the approved product list. Then when the service decides they want to buy you, you have to go through an ATO, authority to operate process. So I think what people are trying to get to for the CMMC, because cybersecurity as a service, we are definitely looking at that capability, because we don't expect most small businesses will be able to organically fulfill all of the CMMC 3, 4, and 5, that the AB is going to have some approved products or a marketplace where they put the products that get tested on there to say that, okay, an assessor comes out and I don't have, and I'm going to use the example I had today, I don't have a SOC capability. So, and what is the name of the product?
Continuum.
Continuum is a product that gives small businesses an opportunity to have SOC capability. Is this how you meet that requirement? Okay, there we go. But the challenge is that, and here's where I'm gonna go, like down the road, because my brain always goes one step beyond, is so as those products list out, like approved products list, those are who the adversary focuses on, right? You do know that. Like, it's the first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club, right? We break that rule all the time. So even like the NIST, right? So what does the NIST do? It gives, which really cracks me up, right? Is we tell our adversaries how to hit us. So we have to work as a unified group, as these products come online and we say, okay, this is good, we have to have the critical thinking that we need to do penetration testing on these products. We need to understand where they were based out of, right? That's a big thing. Where the source code, if it's a software product, is coming from. How does the supply chain around that product live? Because these are the products that are going to help us secure ourselves. We need to make sure that they're set up appropriately. But I see, and I'll ask the AB director, the chairman, that's my intent, is the marketplace will have some approved products. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. What the process is for determining what that is all stems from everything else we just described. What are the requirements so that we have a process for vetting that? Our intent is to not get in the way and to leverage all the great work that's been done out there, and to make sure that those companies that have invested in tools or the other products that Katie just mentioned have the opportunity to continue to make those contributions.
So, like what you guys are doing, right? You do testing a product. You want to talk about that?
Sure.
So we should use best practices, and when the government's already paying for something, should we take it? Take it.
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing here is testing a broad variety of products. We're not, I can't say we absolutely endorse anything. All we say is it works, and we tell you how it works. We typically, folks wouldn't donate their products for testing here if we said, oh my God, that's the worst thing in the world. Our job is just the facts. So some of that testing occurs based on government requirements. Some of it is on industry best practices. In this particular context, it's about the CMMC, threat detection, what types of assets and threats can be detected via IT, OT, and information technology, obviously, and IOC, obviously, Internet of Things, or IIoT, as my friends in the industrial community would like to say, industrial Internet of Things. Those are devices. Those are sort of the forgotten devices. Some of the other things that we're testing, and you'll see that this afternoon, by the way. There are a number of solution companies. There are different ways. There's no 100 thing that 100% solution out there. There are different layers depending on what your target level of compliance are, and you'll have to layer that, that stack. What we're looking at is how to reduce that stack, and that the information that we're going to be publishing through Project Spectrum is, look, we require every vendor to tell us how they help compliance, and then we try to validate that and how far up the chain they take you. Because as a small business, you don't want to buy 10 things if you can get there in 3 things or 4 steps, right? So that's what we're doing here. So we set up all the test controls, the labs. One of the things that I think maybe differentiates us, maybe it doesn't, is we test in the labs with Cyber Command, NSA staff, our own team of hackers and electrical engineers and all that. And then we also test in the field. We get small DIB members to participate in our pilot, and we'll put the solutions out there, and then we'll hit those solutions, we'll get information. What does the DIB member get? They get the benefit of information they didn't have before. They get information about their assets, existing threats, and then what do we get? We get, how does something really work? And then we can tell the DoD, it's like, they don't have to believe us, ask that guy. And we introduced Ms. Arrington to one of those individuals today that we've been working with for over a year.
So can I just want to make sure. And so you all clearly understand, on those people that are live streaming this, the DoD is not going to direct you as a company what products to use to secure yourself. I want to make sure that's really clear. That is not our job. We are not going to tell you how to do or who to go to work with, period. End of story. The accreditation body is separate than the DoD. It's stood up on its own, so whatever they deem approved is theirs, but we are not going to tell you what product to use. That will never happen from us. That's not our role when you're doing your own business.
Related but different topic, briefly, just so everyone's wondering timing. When can I get assessed? When will training be available? Katie's used the term crawl, walk, run. This is important. As we enter the April, May, June timeframe to train assessors, to hit the initial milestones and gates for the initial RFIs and contracts, and then come to scale after we ring out the process the first couple times. Just know that this is going to be a very carefully coordinated effort between DoD and the AB to make sure that there's not a mad rush on what's bluntly going to be a very limited assessor capacity near term. So just know that that will be more details on that as we get that figured out here in the near future.
We have another question on the screen, and it's this may be a short answer, and we'll move to the next one. We got about 5 minutes left before lunch. So, what is the process for an organization or individual to become a certified third-party CMMC auditor?
Still in the works. This is part of what the committees that I mentioned earlier are working through to basically bring forward into working groups so that any and all stakeholders who want to help shape this have the opportunity to do so. What they're doing is putting together a fully formed concept or a couple of different courses of action so that you all can chuck rocks at it and add your inputs to things for us to consider and decide and drive into implementation. So that, again, the announcement of what those working groups are that will be specifically chartered towards solving point issues associated with this whole process and others, you should start to see those rolling out on our website here in the next week.
So just to let you know, in the memorandum of understanding with the AB, there are certain things that we in the government said that we need to have out there. We need to have a basic level, I can't think of the term right now, clearance level. Why can't I think of the term? Background check on the auditors, that they, U.S. citizens, that type of thing. So we are looking at, there were some specifics that we passed along just so that we understood who was going into your companies, because that is, we do respect that we are sending, you're going to get a third-party auditor, and the FedRAMP model is this, we're going in and these entities will be looking at your SSPs, they'll be looking at your proprietary information, and we want to ensure that we're putting the best foot forward and doing our due diligence to buy down the risk.
Those are a great set of answers, and some of the almost I call this place sort of the United Nations. People come from all over the world here. The Five Eyes, the Brits and the Australians, and just they all come through here in one form or another. We recently had a busload of DISA, the new DCSA folks, and they were here, and we were talking about they're going to have a role with this, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
So, does everyone know how Canada does work? So if you want to do work in a company in Canada on a Department of Defense contract, you can bid, you can submit the bid, but the actual way we interact is through the Canadian Commercial Corporation. So Canada has said we have our own voluntary cyber standard for small and large businesses, but what we're going to do is we're going to send our representatives from this, I call it the CCC, to the accreditation board so that they can get audited, they can get certified to go and certify the companies in Canada. The UK, Australia, I could go down the list of countries, right? Because we have to level set to make sure that it's an equal playing field across the globe for this. So when I say US citizen, I'm talking about that's for the DoD side. When it goes, and I want to make sure I'm clear, you know, when it goes to Canada, that's who's going to be doing it. I can give you more details as they emerge on that, but our international partners are all in on this one. The Five Eye partners especially are all in.
I can second that because they all come through here multiple times a year. General Nakasone sends them over when they're finished or before they go see him, and we have those conversations. They're tracking this very aggressively, and they're all in, and they think it's a great thing. When I was in Israel with Scott Dade, Cyber Command's tech outreach director there, we toured a lot of sites, some sensitive, some not, and we looked at the way the Israelis were doing it, and they kind of chuckled as we were talking, like, you know, you guys are behind, right? And it's like, well, you know, are we? I was like, we mandate things. Our constitution is different, so if you're going to buy something from, you know, from the Israeli military, or you're going to or they're going to buy something from you, you don't have a lot of options. I mean, I saw some of the sensors that are mandated. Some of those companies have been here. I've seen some of the technology. They go all the way down to some levels of monitoring the electrical pulses of the devices in the environment to determine if there's an anomaly at that level. Most small businesses can't afford that. I don't know if the government of Israel is subsidizing some of that technology, but they only utilize companies that have their technology, you know, their recommended or approved stack in there from what we were able to see when we were out in Israel. We went all over the country. Luckily, we didn't have to catch any rockets. This is going to be the last question because I think lunch is ready. And I know what the answer is. I'm going to be like John over there from Pierre Maza. How much is an organization expected to spend on complying with the CMMC level? It depends. I think that's the answer. It depends. It depends on your environment. It depends on whether you're in the cloud. It depends whether you have industrial controls. Depends on who your supply chain is. I mean, I've visited companies all over the country as part of this process, and I learned something, and sometimes it should be common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't so common. But I went to go visit a manufacturer. I'm like, hey, where's your stuff? Where's your production lines? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, where's that stuff? It's like, it's not here. We just do the design here. Everything is done somewhere else. So nothing here? It's like, no. And he goes, everything else is in the cloud. This morning, as I was coming here, Lockheed Martin just shut down the F-35 plant in Japan. Why? That was because of another type of virus. but it hit the supply chain. It made me think, man, we need to start we have a bunch of biologists, PhDs in biology here. Maybe we need to start getting on that because you can shut down the supply chain with that type of virus because it's definitely happening, right? So, ma'am, do you have anything else you want to say on that topic of cost?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone, Ms. Ante, for all of the time because I don't know, you know, I know you're probably leaving on a jet plane as soon as you finish here because you're on the move. You know, I know what your schedule's like. We're going to continue working hard. I want to thank the panelists. They're going to be here. We have some really good sessions coming up. One of the things that we get to see here a lot is people bring solutions here. I can tell you that Splunk's got something. You'll hear from Nozomi. You'll hear from Dragos. We got some good stuff, some good content. Those of you who have businesses that are in the cloud, we have companies that have been working on the NIST and the CUI from a cloud perspective. Something that hit me not too far into this, that what about if everything's in the cloud? What are you gonna audit? How are you gonna do that, right? So we have some of that going on. I want you guys to enjoy lunch. There's multiple bathrooms here. We'll show you all that kind of good stuff. And let's give the panel a round of applause because they were amazing. I'm gonna thank my partner in crime over there, Kurum, the lawyer from Miami. And I like working with Kurum. And he's got his red running shoes on today, so look out, man. That's a lawyer with track shoes on or whatever. Thank you, guys. Give yourself a round of applause. Enjoy the food. By the way, in one of the rooms there, we have tabletops from a lot of the vendors. Dessert's gonna be in there. Guess what? I don't know about you, if you like sweets, but they're from Georgetown,